Moyen, bonjour, bom dia, hello. Welcome to this post-screening Q&A that we recorded for you guys on Zoom. My name is Boyd van Hooy. I am the curator at large of the Luxembourg City Film Festival, and today I'm joined by Catarina Vasconcelos, the director of the Metamorphosis of Birds, which is part of our documentary competition. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Boyd. It's a huge pleasure to be part of your wonderful film festival. Thank you so much.
We're very excited, of course, to be showing this film in the documentary competition, and I actually want to start with specifically that part because it is unlike a more traditional documentary, shall we say. It's very, very creative, very poetic, and I'm just sort of wondering how do you see this fitting in terms of genre, or was it just not something that you were thinking about? You just wanted to tell the story?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful question to start with because I actually sometimes I think it's weird to call it a documentary in a sense that it started the wish to make the film started with a documentary feeling. I never met my grandmother Beatriz, who used to be called Trish, and Trish died 2 years before I was born, and I was living in London in 2014, and I was having like a conversation like I'm having with you right now with my father, and he eventually told me that in the middle of very trivial things, he just told me that, you know what, like your grandfather wants to burn the letters between him and your grandmother, and I was very shocked with it because I never met this woman Beatriz, and I was sure that through the letters, I could meet her, or at least know more about her. So we had a sort of a discussion, a bit of an argument, and I lost. Uh, because my father told me in a very, I think he was right. Like, she's your grandmother and he's your grandfather, but they are people, and this is their intimacy. And if this is his last dying wish, we should do this. So I was very, very concerned that Beatriz was going to die again. That was very unfortunate that a woman had to die twice. So I decided to make this film, and I started to know more about this woman. So I started to have all of these interviews with my uncles and my aunt and my father and my cousins who met Beatriz. And so I was quite focused in having a documentary. But it happens something which is sometimes it happens in all families, that there are things which are not said, so things that are hidden, and I didn't know why this was happening. I thought that they were hiding something from me, and then I eventually came to understand that this is something that happens in all families. And so what happened is that I had some things that were true, or let's say they were documented, like they were documented, and some things I didn't know. So I was like, well, if I don't know, maybe I can invent it. So in this way, the form of the Metamorphosis of Birds happen in this dialogue between documentary and fiction. But I must say that I wasn't, when you start surfing this wave, I wasn't too concerned about if it was documentary or fiction. I think in the end was about cinema.
So it's really I mean, trying to get closer to your family history through storytelling, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, no, completely, and in this process to become closer to them as well. I think all families, they have some not secrets, but things that are not told, and in this process there was a sort of a collective catharsis that we all came to speak about something. And for a generation, as my parents, my father and my uncles, which they were taught about not having not crying, not speaking about their emotions. This was a strong process between us all. I truly felt that.
Yeah. So to what extent would you say are your other family members in a sense, or co-directors is maybe not the right word, but I'm assuming that they had some input, of course, in what they wanted to share and how they wanted to share it. So what was that process like?
Yeah, so I took 6 years to make the film, which I think is an important thing because in these 6 years, many things happened. There were people who were born, people who died. Um, and in the relationship towards my family changed as well. In the beginning, they were quite happy about, oh, great, you are doing a film about Beatriz, our mother. Then it changed. Why are you doing a film about our mother? She's our mother. You don't know her. Then it went to, you shouldn't do a film about this. She's dead. It's not fair. And then I stopped talking about it. I took some time to write the film, and then when the film was written, I started to do some castings in my family with my younger cousins. All the actors that you see portrayed in the film are my family. Most of them, there are three people who are not, but they became. Um, and so they started to understand. My uncles, they started to like, oh, I see what you're doing. You are bringing our grandchildren to portray us. And in this moment it became a collective saga, and in this moment it was quite touching, if I'm honest, in the sense that it became something that belonged to all of us, and everyone had a role. Of course I was directing them, but I was directing them in their own family saga. It was something that we shared, and in this sense I think the film belongs to all of this family, and it's a collective creation in this way.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a sort of more creative way or a different way to get to a documentary truth in a sense, because they are in a sense playing not themselves but their own family and
Yeah,
in ways they want to share it.
yeah. There was one day that, so finally I showed the film to my family. It was 1 year ago. It was on the 5th of January 2020. So we booked a venue in Lisbon. We are 50, so it's kind of easy to, we are a lot of people. So, and they were all very excited. I was super nervous, and then in the end it was very emotional. And in the end, my youngest cousin, my youngest uncle, he told me, you know, Catarina, maybe some things didn't happen as as you said, but maybe they did. And I thought this was delicious. This was the key of the film. That in the midst of these things, which are maybe not, maybe yes, one never knows really. So, yeah,
Yeah, no, I think I want to come back quickly to what you said earlier about what you can't remember, invent. I think someone in the movie says it as well.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so because I'm wondering then, of course, as an artist, you have some kind of distance, or you need some kind of distance, maybe even when you're trying to tell a story to make sure that the audience will understand the story that you're talking about. But then, of course, in the documentary genre, there is less distance because there is a reality. So I mean, you can't ignore the reality, and I mean, it makes you emotional somehow. It has some effect on you. But then when it's your own family, it's even more involving because you're also part of the story. You're not just behind the camera, but you're also in a way in front of it all the time. So I'm just wondering, were you ever worried about the distance, or was it actually something that really helped because there was not a lot of distance?
No, I was extremely concerned about that. At one point, I was very concerned about being keeping truth to some things. But then I realized that some things I didn't know. Like I didn't know how my grandmother was. I will never be able to know this. And there's something quite amazing that happens with the dead people. They always became amazing. Dead people, they don't have any problems. They were perfect. Like my mom, no, she was perfect. She had any fault, every, and this is quite something that you do in your mind. This is something that your mind triggers you. So once you realize this, you kind of start to think that it's all a big fiction. So what are you trying to be truthful to? And so there was some, but there's some essence, I think, that you become very close to, I guess. But in the middle of the process of searching, you find some sort of untouchable thing that becomes something that guides you, which it sounds all very mystical, but it's in the end it's not. It's just it becomes quite palpable almost. And uh, I don't know. I should say that for me, it was quite a big moment when I understood that I could um, be a bit free from my family and still be very close to them. Uh, Maybe it doesn't make sense, but in the film it actually made sense that I could measuring distances all the time.
Yeah, no, I think in a way you're almost like two people at the same time. Like you're part of the family and then you're also the storyteller. So it's like you have two different roles.
Which I
Um,
think is the way we always feel with our families in general. Like sometimes these awkward moments, like in big like Christmas time, when you sit in the table and you look to all of your family and you're like, "Am I really part of this?" And you're like, "Yeah, why not? Just bring me a glass of wine." And but there's this moment that you're like, "They are so weird," and they're like, "No, but I'm weird as well." So I think families have this amazing thing, and maybe that's because of this that there are so many films about families that they are so intriguing, so weirdly familiar.
I want to talk a little bit about the letters. You already mentioned them earlier, because I feel like it's I mean, and I think if I'm correct, you also used them in a previous film as well, family letters. So I'm just wondering what the appeal is for them for you. Like, is it what makes them so interesting? Like, why do you read a letter and want to turn it into cinema?
Wow, no, I was never asked that. Wow, yeah, I really have to think about this one. No, um, I- in 2014, as I said, I was living in London, and for me, it was always a puzzle for me to understand how did my grandparents build a family. He was all the time in the sea, and she was at all the time at shore. So this is weird. There wasn't WhatsApp, mobile phones, Zoom,
Internet?
nothing,
No.
internet. There were some telegrams, and this was weird because you had to pay by words, and so it's a totally different mindset from so and and then I thought, so maybe the letters, this would be the place where you show everything, all the wonders of your love. So I think in a way there's a part of me that romanticizes it a lot. Um, and in the end, I was happy that I wasn't able to read the letters because I could imagine them and to maybe to mirror and to all of these romanticism that I think letters have. Um, in my first short film, I actually wrote these letters to my brother, and because I know that I knew that he would never read an email like another email of Catarina, like they are so long. But if I write him a letter, he will have. There's something very special and very that you can touch about letters, and we stopped doing this. It's when you write someone a letter, it's really important in our days. In opposition to my grandparents' time, where it was very common, in nowadays it became quite special. And I think for me to think about letters is as well to think about something very special. It's almost like we shot the film. The first half of the film is all shot in 16 millimeters, and the second half is in digital. And when we were shooting in film, there was this. I don't know how it was. Even almost a spiritual thing because we didn't have lots of money and we had not so much film. So it was like the time was suspended when we were shooting. It was like action, no one would breathe, and then cut, and it was like okay. And so there's something that you can
It's like a
touch.
sacred time. Yeah.
Yes, yes, there's something sacred about it. And that's exactly the word. There's something sacred, and that the letters have as well. You take a lot of time to write a letter. An email, you are like, "Oh, whatever." So there's something about time. Yes, I think that's it.
No, because I mean that makes me wonder. I mean, imagine in 100 years and your great granddaughter wants to make a movie about your life. How is this going to work? Like, are they going to use emails, or are she going to invent letters that you never wrote, or how is this going to evolve?
I hope that she invents it because it will be, I don't know, I would love to be able to see it from wherever I will be in that time, or not. Um, it gives you so much freedom as well to think, and some things you will never be able to know. So you might just accept that and give yourself freedom and time to explore what you think it was or how it was.
I have one more general question about Portuguese cinema because, I mean, of course, Luxembourg is a small country. Portugal is also a small country, a bigger small country. But you have a very active film industry. I mean, and your movies from Portugal are seen all over the globe. People are interested in Portuguese cinema. I mean, Portuguese cinema is a thing. So I'm just wondering how it feels for you to be part of that. I mean, do you feel like a Portuguese filmmaker? That's maybe a first question that we can talk about. And how do you see Portuguese cinema as having an impact on what you're doing specifically?
I feel incredibly honored to be a Portuguese filmmaker. It fills me with honor and pride. I think there's something uh, very specific to the Portuguese cinema, which has a lot to do as well with the lack of support and lack of money that exists. And but this huge resilience of still doing films, and films that are always objects that are hybrid, objects that mix a lot, documentary and fiction. And I do feel that if I do these kind of films nowadays, I owe a lot to everyone who did Portuguese films before, and I feel incredible. I feel super grateful for this. And as for the second part of your question, the fact that Portuguese films then find their way sometimes in the globe, I think it's a miracle. And I don't use this word in a soft way. It's a miracle in the sense that with so much money that is put into culture in Portugal, with such a lack of of support, you can have films that travel and enables that then to us to have this nice conversations. It's a miracle. Um, yeah.
Okay, great. I think that's a perfect way to end this conversation. Thank you very much, Catarina.
Thank you so much, Boyd.